That wasn't members of the press cheering me. Thank you all for joining us. I'm Jano Lieber, MTA Chair and CEO, and I'm here with interim President of New York City Transit, Craig Cipriano, soon to be permanent COO of New York City Transit. Buses, Senior Vice President Frank Annacaro, and of course, our incredible partners in city government, New York City DOT Commissioner Adonis Rodriguez and Queens Borough President Donovan Richards. We're really grateful that they joined us today. Today we're celebrating the next step in our borough-by-borough bus network redesign, which is the release of the new draft plan for the bus network in Queens. An emphasis is on draft. This is the beginning of a process that is not going to be time limited and is going to include, to start, 14 meetings with each of the community boards in Queens and discussions onward and onward. This has to be an inclusive process, and we're going to make it that way. The proposal reimagines both local and express bus service to address the evolving needs of Queens communities with an emphasis on faster travel, more reliable travel, better connections, ease of use. Those are the things that our customers care about the most. The Queens draft plan is the third to be released. Remember, we did Staten Island. It's gone into effect. It's been a success. The Bronx, on a second try, we got it done with all the Bronx leadership and the Bronx communities. It's being implemented now. It already looks like a success. But Queens may be the most important of the 5 borough bus redesigns, because Queens has historically had less subway service relative to its size and population than the other boroughs. So many people in Queens depend on buses for access to jobs and education and culture and everything New York has to offer, because a bus is mass transit in many parts of Queens. It is the only way in many parts of Queens to connect to the subway system and the commuter rail system. And so we are really emphasizing the importance of this bus redesign most of all. We know we need to get it right this time. The first draft plan, which came out in 2019, didn't get all that well received, to say the least. So during COVID, our teams, our professionals, led in large part by Judy McLean of New York City Transit Operations Planning. Thank you, Judy. The teams went back to the drawing board, armed with the more than 11,000 comments that we received from customers, and came up with a new draft, which I emphasize is a draft subject to change based on the dialogue that is about to unfold. The end result of the draft is a much stronger proposal, we believe, that serves Queens riders better, and we can't wait to get all the feedback that's coming. This is, there's a lot of work to do, and it's not time limited. And also important, we took away that prior principle that had been talked about before, that it has to be revenue neutral. We're not saying at this time, we're saying we need the best bus system to serve Queens, to serve everybody, and we're going to look at getting that right, and then we'll figure out the economics together. Now, with all that, on this exciting day, let me turn it over to my partner, Craig Cipriano.
Thank you, Jano. So this will be one of the largest bus network redesigns in the entire country. Over 100 routes serving 800,000 daily customers. And while the draft plan is ambitious, the newly proposed network will look more familiar to our customers, as we have used the existing Q route designation where possible, and have made a conscious effort to give riders the tools they need to compare how their existing routes compare to the new routes. As Jano said, this is not the final plan. We're eager to hear what you have to say, and there's still plenty of room to make changes. We'll be doing robust public outreach so you can make your voices heard. As Jano said, 14 virtual public workshops held between now and June. That's one meeting for each community district in Queens. The first will be held April 18th. We'll also be doing informal on-street engagements, at key locations throughout the borough, including at major bus hubs. Additionally, you could submit your comments on the MTA website, new.mta.info/Queens redesign, Queens bus redesign. There you'll also find a list of all the dates for our public meetings. We encourage you to register on the webpage if you can attend. And we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity here to create a better bus system for you, our Queens customers. So we need you to be part of it. Your feedback is crucial. Thank you, and I'd like to turn it now to my partner, Commissioner Ydanis Rodriguez.
Ydanis, come on up. What an amazing partner Ydanis has been. We talked about so many things in buses and otherwise. We got to make buses faster. It depends a lot on what we do on the streets. Ydanis is leading that effort. I also want to acknowledge that City Council Transportation Committee Chair Selvina Brooks Powers is represented today by Renee Taylor, her Deputy Chief of Staff. Thank you for being here. Ydanis.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. And also thank you, Craig, and the rest of the members here in this group, from being here with former council member, Donovan Richard, now the borough president of the great borough of Queens. It's a great opportunity. The buses are our opportunity that we have in the city of New York to be turned as an above-the-ground train system. A lot of work has been done, but I know that under the leadership of Governor Kathy Hochul, Mayor Eric Adams, Chair Llano, and we at DOT, we will continue taking our buses where we had never been before, making riders or giving riders the opportunity to have the best experience when they get into the bus. We are proud to have worked closely with the MTA advocates and community residents to significantly improve bus speed, but there's much more work to do. And that's why Mayor Eric Adams and I have a bold plan to create 150 miles of new and better bus lanes and busway across the city, speeding up buses and significantly reducing wait time for New Yorkers. But we only will do it together with Chair Llano and the rest of the team at the MTA. We are also actively working with the NYPD to ensure that bus lanes remain unobstructed and clear. For this reason, we are working hard with Mayor Adams and many advocates calling on Albany to pass a home rule for our street, which would include making the automatic bus lane camera enforcement program permanent, transferring home rules to New York City for our street that will allow to rapidly respond to public safety crisis on our roadways, reducing reckless driving and keep private automobiles out of the bus lanes, resulting in bus moving faster through open and clear bus lane, improve bus service reliability, and reduce wait time. We look forward to continue working with Chair Llano and the rest of the team. What we have seen is in this particular area, there's more than 250 riders using this bus lane every day. And this has been very important for the residents of Queens. Para nosotros hoy estamos en un día muy importante, junto con el presidente de la MTA, con un liderazgo, con una gobernadora Kathy Hochul, con un alcalde Eric Adams, comprometido a nosotros seguir expandiendo lo que son las líneas de los autobuses para que esta experiencia sirva a que los neoyorquinos regresen de nuevo a usarla como lo estaban haciendo anteriormente. Gracias.
All righty, Ydanis was supposed to introduce me, but okay, but it's all good.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me give you the great leader, the Queensboro president, Donovan Richard.
Thank you for that commercial. But what a muy bueno. But what a great day to be in Queens in Borough President Donovan Richards. And for the thousands of Queens residents who get up each morning and head out to a bus stop around here, today is a great day. Many of those residents are coming or going right here, downtown Jamaica. If you're from Southeast Queens like I am, you know it can sometimes take you an hour just to get to one of the train stations here in Jamaica. I often joke, and it's not really a joke, that it's as easy. David knows this quote by now. He's going to tweet it. It's easier to get to Florida by plane than to Manhattan by train from here on some days. And if you're going to Brooklyn or somewhere else in Queens, you're taking the bus to Jamaica just to get on another bus to get to work or school. This is what getting around is like if you're in a train desert, like Southeast Queens, Eastern Queens, or Southwest Queens. The bus system is our lifeline, but far too often, the buses are unreliable here, overcrowded, and slow. The routes are outdated and schedules haven't changed with our neighborhoods, as you can see behind me. That's why the MTA set out in 2009 to redesign the borough's entire bus network to provide more frequent and reliable bus service that better satisfies the needs of Queens. The first plan wasn't exactly popular with many of us, but I give the MTA a ton of credit in coming back. They not only went back to the drawing board, they're coming back to us with a better product. This new plan incorporates in response to the feedback the MTA received after it put out its first draft and really expanded on a lot of the good ideas that came from our communities. And while this is a lot to like about this new draft plan, its release is by no means the final step in the process. In fact, the most important part of the process is upon us, as these same communities can now weigh in on version 2 of this plan. Look, Queens families rely heavily on bus service that can often lack in efficiency and reliability, especially in many transit deserts. So it could not be more important than we get this redesign of our bus network right this time. And I know that if our communities are fully engaged and involved in this process, we will get this redesign process right. That's why I encourage all Queens residents, especially those who live in transit deserts, to familiarize themselves with the MTA draft plan and to make their views on it known. I also look forward to working with the MTA to ensure our families are not only sitting at the table with us throughout this process, I want them sitting at the head of the table. That's because working people have no choice but to take the bus, and they should under no circumstances be forced to accept slow and unreliable service. So I want to thank once again the MTA for doing this. I did have an opportunity to work with Jano and many of his staffers on this plan. I want to thank the staff of DOT and the MTA. I think what they came back with was really a better product. We look forward to, obviously, the community input as we move ahead. I will end in saying that your socioeconomic status, the color of your skin, who you worship, who you love, should not be a determinant on whether you have transit equity. Thank you.
Questions? Let's go on topic first, please. On topic first. Dan Rivoli over there.
Thank you. Jano, question. Can you characterize that? You don't have to go too into specifics. Can you characterize what was wrong with the 2019 draft? How would you characterize this draft and what it aims to achieve and how it achieves it? And then, you heard a lot of people say there's a lot to love. You know the phrase. Love lost with the bus in Queens. How does this draft meet the moment of all the criticisms you heard about the bus today?
Listen, Dan, it's a draft, so everything we say that's good about it is subject to the real dialogue that needs to, begin right now. As my partners at New York City DOT and Borough President Richards have said, this is the beginning of the process, not the end. But the draft that is being released today does some important things. It focuses on, one, connecting people more quickly to the subways and to the commuter railroads. It also tries to balance the goal of moving buses more quickly with which sometimes involves reducing the number of stops with maintaining effective local bus service, especially to communities which have a lot of seniors in it and a lot of people who do need close bus stops. And it's also rethinking the issue that we work so closely with New York City DOT and Commissioner Rodriguez on, which is how to make full use of the bus lanes. We have a mayor who's now committed to dramatically increase the number of bus lanes. The MTA has been pushing for it for a long time, but more bus lanes is one of the major ways that we're going to get faster bus service. This plan will try to leverage that commitment to additional bus lanes to get much faster service for Queensites.
All right, Dave Colon right here.
One of these questions is for BP Richards, and I guess the other ones are probably for Jano. But President, 2 years ago you were down the block criticizing the draft plan that came out. I'm curious if you're here today, in the future, as a salesman then for it. And then for Jano, is this plan going to increase bus service? Is it going to be a revenue neutral kind of thing? And on the topic of eliminating bus stops, obviously that's going to wind up being very controversial. They're a little close by international standards in Queens. So I'm curious what you're shooting for here. In the Bronx, buses wound up average about 1,000 feet and bus stops between each other. Are you shooting for that here? Are you shooting for something more?
So let me start in just saying, as you alluded to, definitely last year I had some significant concerns about the initial plan. I think that when you look at what the MTA has come back with, and at least what I have seen thus far, I think you can tell that they definitely listened to communities. So yeah, I'm here as a salesperson to say, let's get this done. Of course, there's a lot more community input, and it's not, listen, there's no such thing as a perfect plan, but we should not let perfect be the enemy of good as well. So I do think that they made some significant changes that got me on board with this plan, and I certainly look forward to listening to the community. And if there are other improvements that need to be made through this version 2, we'll continue to work with the MTA to update their plans. And I'll also add, I had concerns about, of course, what you just mentioned as well, cutting stops in lieu of saying you're speeding up the buses. And I understand that there are some bus stops that are very close, a block or two apart. There will be some impacts there, but it's something I think worth doing in terms of speeding up many of the buses as well. And of course, we always want more money for more bus service as well. Thank you.
Listen, I'm going to ask Craig to come up and talk about the specifics of how we're managing what I think is a Goldilocks approach to trying to balance the number of stops and bus speed issues. But the big picture here has to be focused on. Buses are about equity. For so many people who are not living right on top of subway lines, buses are mass transit. We have to make it possible for them to move around the city quickly and efficiently. Buses have to be faster than walking. This plan is focused on trying to provide more convenient service, faster service, and service that connects with the other transportation modes so that people can reach other, the full range of jobs and education and culture and everything the city has to deal with. That's the vision. I'm going to ask Craig to focus on your very specific question about the spacing of bus stops.
Yeah, hi, Dave. So, there's no specific goal. When we've benchmarked our system compared to other bus systems in the world, we know that the New York City bus system has much tighter bus stop spacing than best practice across the world. But, when it comes to the network redesign, it's not about removing bus stops. It's about, how many riders do we anticipate using that bus stop? What's the land use around the bus stop, right? What are the intermodal connections? So there's no hard and fast goal. What I would say is we're trying to speed up our bus system, and one aspect of speeding it up is the amount of time that a bus spends in a bus stop, or the dwell time. So, we balance out all those planning, assumptions there, and we make recommendations, and then we hear feedback from our customers and other stakeholders as we've done in the past.
Was this designed with a future for all-door boarding if you're trying to cut down on dwell time?
So, I mean, we have a commitment with the full implementation of Omni to all dual boarding. But one thing we really need to look at closely, and I think Jano will probably want to say a few words, is a fair evasion, fair collection issue that we're currently having, and that's really where our focus is now as we look towards the future.
I think it's premature. Why don't we? The plan is going to become available, and you can get into the specifics. But I think you heard from Craig that the goal is to take a lot of different factors, population density, the usage, all the issues that would help us to identify the optimal combination of the number of bus stops and the distance between bus stops and so on and so on. But another thing that's gone on here, and I think it's important not to lose, is there's a vision of new routes that stop a little less but connect to major intermodal connections. So maybe there's going to continue to be a lot of local bus service with a lot of stops, but there will also be some buses that go much faster and much more directly to connect, for example, to Jamaica Station. So there's an idea of we're trying to do both, which is one of the reasons that we are not putting a cap on how much this plan can cost to implement. We are committed to achieving transit equity in Queens, and we took off as part of this plan the idea that was in the last era of it has to be revenue neutral. That's not the case anymore.
All right, one more on topic. Anna Lay of the New York Times.
Hey, Jano. Y'all mentioned the timeline for community outreach, but can you specify when this will be done and implemented?
I'm going to let Craig. Do you want to talk a little more about that one?
So we haven't set a hard and fast date on when it's implemented because, just of what we're discussing. We know we have a lot of community outreach to do. We have 14 workshops that are planned. And again, we're not going to set a date for implementation until we know we're going to get it right. So, when it comes to the Bronx redesign, we're looking forward to implementing that this summer. And then as we move forward, depending on the amount of outreach, the amount of comments we get back, we'll set a date on the implementation for Queens shortly thereafter.
Jano, Craig, and Frank are going to stay. I don't know if you have one last word. Absolutely. Off topic, Jano, Craig, and Frank are going to stay for that.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
everybody else.
You want to do our little sign for the Spanish television? Juntos podemos mejorar el sistema de voz, right? All right. Who's the Spanish? Pick it up. All right. We have a standard line we say whenever we're together, which is Juntos podemos mejorar el sistema de tránsito. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anna, apologies for the accent. Okay. Off topic.
All right, we have off topics. NJ Birkin, Channel 7.
Newt.
Now that you've got some money coming in from the federal government, when can we expect to have another announcement regarding the 2nd Avenue subway extension?
We're thrilled that President Biden has put $400 million for the 2nd Avenue subway in the new budget that he's submitted to Congress. That signifies what's important about this is it signifies the federal government is committed to this project. For years and years we waited, especially during the Trump administration, to see evidence of a federal commitment to this project. This is that commitment. We're still waiting for the balance of our grant request to be acted on, which is close to $3 billion. So, before we start breaking out the champagne and declaring that this project's going to be executed exactly on a specific schedule, we have to wait for more information that will signify that we can count on the rest of the money. But this is a very important milestone in what has been a many-year commitment by the MTA, by Governor Hochul, to make sure the 2nd Avenue subway, which serves the most transit-dependent community in New York, has been a community that's been waiting for 75 years since they knocked down the 3rd and 2nd Avenue Ls to get rail transportation. This project is now going to happen. I don't think that's the right answer. I think the answer is we're going to have clarity as soon as the federal government, which is in the process of acting on our grant application, gives us some feedback. I think that's coming soon.
Another off topic, anybody? Yeah, Anna Lay once again, sir.
Given that you're looking at this deficit in a few years, things are good right now, but they won't be if you don't find another revenue source. Have you guys contemplated any doomsday scenarios, and what kind of cuts are we looking at if things don't improve?
Yeah, it's a good question. So as you know, our structural deficit is basically covered through 2025 by the federal money. But even that is a little bit open to question because we are now recalculating with the help of some experts that are in the process of being brought on board exactly what the projections are for revenue, not just from ridership revenue, but also from all the taxes and subsidies that are linked to economic activity and so on. So we definitely have, this is by no means certain, but what I would say is we're not planning doomsday scenarios because the MTA's core function, as demonstrated again and again during COVID, is we are the essential service. New York can't function. New York can't be revived without MTA services because everybody depends on it so much. So while we are trying to project the exact nature and timing of the deficits, we're not going to stop planning to provide the best service to support New York's recovery. And so doomsday, I don't think is part of it, but we have told the legislature and we have told the executive that we really need in the next legislative session or two to attack the problem of the MTA structural deficit and not to put the cost of that deficit all on the backs of the riders. That's what we've been communicating.
Let's close it out with Dave Colon.
Just to go back to something that I think got papered over a second ago, can you talk a little bit about what Craig kind of intimated? You're more worried about fare vision on the buses than getting all-door boarding going. I mean, we have a lot of people getting on the back anyway, so why not just
I don't know if you're riding the B35, my friend.
I'm riding the B6.
Yeah.
People just get on the bus because they're impatient.
Here's the issue, and we're trying to figure it out. We are committed to all-door boarding, full stop. The question of whether it makes sense to do it before we really have fare payment methodologies available in the back of the bus with the full deployment of Omni is an open question that we're wrestling with. So that's the answer. We're committed to all-door boarding as something that we've got to have for all the reasons you mentioned, principally dwell times. But the question of when do we inaugurate it or pilot it is an open question that we have to wrestle with because right now we don't have the full range of payment options. I think only 10 to 20% of our bus riders use Omni, and all we've got at the back door is Omni right now. So we got to figure that out.
Thank you. Thanks,
Okay.
everybody.